Hello and welcome to the Slumbering Book Nook, a podcast about all things books, publishing, and more. My name is Emma, and today my guest is Federica Leonardis. Federica is an agent at Martin Leonardis Literary Management. Now on with the show. Hey, my guest today is Federica. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you for inviting me.
That's all right, no problem. So, you are currently a literary agent at Martin Leonardis. So, can you tell me a bit about your role and what your day-to-day sort of activities involved at your job?
Right. How much time do you have?
I don't know. Whatever you want. You can start wherever you like.
Let's see. So, I'm a literary agent. I have my own agency, so I run my own company, which I guess makes things slightly different from, the majority of the literary agents out there. Most of them work for somebody else. But I think in general, in order to be a literary agent, you need to be very entrepreneurial. You have to be very driven, sort of being able to work under your own steam, so to speak. I deal with both authors, the authors I represent, who are my clients. So I serve my clients, but at the same time, I also work with publishers, editors mostly, publishers in general, contracts department, royalties department. So a literary agent needs to know as much as possible about all the aspects of the publishing industry. On a daily basis, I mean, I wish I could make a plan. So in the morning, I wake up and I have, like today I'm going to do this, and this. I've got my to-do list. And then something happens and everything is up in the air.
Yes, of course. We've all had days like that.
So you have to be very responsive.
Exactly.
To be able to be very organized and to keep all the various elements, in order. But you have to be very responsive and able to modify your plans very, very quickly. But mostly is, yes, working with my clients, serving my clients, making their books, as good as possible, as sellable as possible, and then sell them to the publishers. So that's the bulk of what I do on a daily basis.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess organisational skills are a top priority for your role. Would you say that?
Yes, I would. I absolutely would. Yes.
Yeah, that's and obviously like the time management and stuff. It must be quite difficult when you've got your own business and you're trying to juggle so many things.
Yes, but also you have to be able to spot possibilities, to read and listen, to multitask, to be very quick.
Yes, exactly.
That's I find that's fundamental.
Exactly. Yeah. So, how did you get into your current role? How did you become and get into literary agency?
I always knew that I wanted to be a literary agent, since I was at university. So I studied in Italy. I studied communications in Italy. And one of the reasons why I moved to London was because I wanted to become a literary agent, and the figure of the literary agent in Italy isn't very common or known. At least it wasn't at the time. When I moved to London, I realized very, very quickly, I knew that my English wasn't good enough. So I took a couple of years to really study and perfect my English. I read a lot. And then when I finally decided that I was ready, I was quite a bit older than, the average age somebody gets into publishing. So I was already 27, 28.
Yeah.
And I I did a few weeks work experience in various literary agencies here in London. And then I got a job, my first job at Ed Victor Limited, which was a fantastic literary agency in foreign rights position. So taking advantage of the fact that I was Italian, that I could speak another language. I'm sorry if you hear me out of breath, but I'm pregnant.
Okay.
A bit of a bump and my lungs are shrinking.
It's okay. That's fine. Don't worry about it.
So if you hear me out of breath, that's why.
Oh, don't worry about it. It's absolutely fine.
So I got my my first job at Victor Literary Agency, as a foreign rights assistant, and I was there for 4 years, possibly a little bit longer than I should have, but it was such a great job, and I was so happy. I was finally working in publishing, so I possibly stayed a little bit longer, and then I took a detour. And I went into publishing. So I went to the publishing side in contracts. I was in the contracts department there for about 2-3 years, more or less. And then I got a job. By then I was already, 33, 34? And I got a job at Rogers, Courage and White, and I was assisting 2 great agents there. I was assisting Peter Robinson and the late David Miller, and I was with them for about 2.5 years, and then I realized that it was now or never, and I decided I had a terrible commute, which was a big part of my decision.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't do this commute anymore.
It's like, oh no.
I'm not sure that was the best reason for taking on such a massive challenge, but so I decided to set up on my own. So finally, it took me like 10 years. I finally found the courage to do it.
It's quite a journey, isn't it? Because a lot, especially to make a decision to go straight in, obviously a bit later. And I don't say better late. There's never, you can do whatever you want kind of thing, can't you? Because there's people that change careers all the time.
Oh yeah, and it's first of all, there are great agents who got into agenting quite late, relatively late, but also I think that the experience that I've gained in contracts and foreign rights was really good, really, really good, and especially the contracts experience. That's absolutely invaluable, because obviously authors are different, and some authors prefer an agent who's stronger from an editorial point of view. There are authors who are perfectly happy to work on their own books editorially on their own or with an external editor, and they prefer an agent who's stronger on the royalty side, on the contractual side. But it's very nice to be able to give them that reassurance that you know what you're doing, that they are in good hands, and they can trust you to do the best for them.
Exactly. No, I think life experience is so important, isn't it, when it comes to roles? And I think I thought I was too old to go to university, but I wasn't. I was just like, I felt quite old.
How old were you when you went to university?
I was 22, which is I know it's quite a ridiculous age, but compared to everybody else, you feel like you're the older one going to university with a load of 18. But I think it's better. I think it's turned out to be better.
I agree. I actually agree. I think you know so much. You know a little bit more about life. You take yourself less seriously.
Exactly. And now I'm not the oldest person on the course. I mean, we've got people from a lady's got 3 children. She's in her 40s, and you've got someone else 30. I think it's good. It's a good balance and mix, so you can sort of meet a variety of people, and I think that's a great thing to have.
Yeah, and then, as I said, you don't take yourself too seriously. And as far as I'm concerned, it's like in every human relationship, you can't expect everybody to like you. You can't be everybody's cup of tea, and not everybody will be your cup of tea, and you're more discerning. You know what you like, you know what you don't like, who you can work with, and who you can't work with. So maybe, hopefully, you make fewer mistakes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but hopefully, yes.
Yes, exactly. That's a great bit of advice. I think always good to have a bit of wisdom on this podcast. It's always
Yeah.
lovely because I think that helps people a lot. You're like, okay, it's going to be fine. That's awesome. So I know we were going a bit about the skills required for the role a bit earlier, but what would you say in terms of if someone wants to become a literary agent? What is the skills that they could like start building upon now to get to that stage?
Well, what age are your audience mostly, generally?
I'd probably say young publishing professionals, so maybe probably students, so people that are sort of just in their final year of university, like looking to go for their first job, maybe in publishing or literary agency.
I would say patience. I mean, obviously, love of books, obviously. Patience. If you're impulsive, if you're too fiery, I mean, there is space for that because you need to be able to defend and your authors, fiercely. You need to be able to have confrontations and uncomfortable conversations with publishers, even sometimes with your own authors, not in a negative way, but sometimes you have to be able to tell them uncomfortable truths. It's not easy to tell somebody they've been rejected, for instance. So you have to be diplomatic, you have to be patient. You can't be scared of having uncomfortable conversations. That's very, very important. But I would say it's best not to be impulsive. And this is something that, for instance, I had to learn because I'm naturally quite reflexive, but at the same time, I get very impatient and very, very irritated very, very quickly. So and I think age is something else that helped with that. As the older you get, the more you're able to curb those excesses. From a very practical, more pragmatic point of view, as we were saying, being organized, being quite logical really helps. A certain degree of creativity, depending on what type of books you want to represent. And always remember that this is not about you, this is about your authors. You need to do what's best for them. And sometimes you need to be able to put your ego aside. Very often, you need to be able to put your ego aside and do what's best for them. And sometimes they will ask you to do things that you don't agree with, and you will have to do them. Exactly. Because at the end of the day, you're there to serve them. I mean, you still have a certain amount of authority, and you bring in expertise, you bringing experience. One of my Peter Robinson, my ex-boss, he's very, very, very wise, and he said that authors need to decide whether they want an agent or whether they want an accessory. Okay, some authors don't realize that, yes, an agent is there to serve them, but is there to bring expertise. Okay, and is not just there to be their assistant, to be their secretary, to be their handbag, so to speak, in a very crude, very metaphorical way.
Yes.
They're there because they bring something to your career as a writer.
Exactly. And it's also building that relationship with the author, because at the end of the day, you're going to be working quite closely with that author, aren't you?
Well, yes, and hopefully you will work with them for a long period of time. I mean, obviously, things can go wrong. Absolutely,
of course, like anything.
People change, but hopefully you will work with them over a long period of time. Very often you will take them on when they are inexperienced and they need guidance.
Yes, of course.
And they need to be able to trust you. They need to be able to rely on you, on your experience and your expertise. And it doesn't mean that you will always have all the answers. And sometimes you will have to say, I don't know. let's see, let's try. I don't know.
Awesome. Well,
But they have to be able to trust you. And I personally find that they will trust you better if they are intelligent. They will trust you better when you're able to say, I don't know, when you're able to say, when you're able to tell them things they don't want to hear, because they will know that when you tell them things they do want to hear, they can trust you. But this is very personal to me. I don't know. I can't speak for all the agents out there.
Exactly. Yeah, awesome. That's great. So, just moving on, what do you look for in a submission to your agency?
Well, this is the question. When I was reading your questions, that's the one that I found most interesting, because even as an agent, I read as a reader.
Yes.
So I have to fall in love. And again, this is many agents will have a different answer. So I find it very hard to read for the market. Do you see what I mean? To sell, or to think, oh, this is not the kind of book I like, but I know it will sell. I can't represent those books. So very often it's happened. I've declined books. Rejected is such a terrible word.
Yeah, I know. Just like, oh no, rejection.
I know. I've declined books thinking I could totally sell this. I can sell this, but I don't love it.
Yeah, I think you have
And
to
the
sort
idea,
of cross
and you
both.
have to, yeah, and you have to work a lot on a book before you're able to sell it, before you pass it on to an editor. And I thought, the idea of working on this book for a year and a half, or whatever, however long it's going to take me, I just can't do it. I just can't do it. And I'm always very honest, and I'm saying, I have no doubt that you will find an agent who will take this on.
Yeah, of course.
But I can't do it. So I very much read as a reader rather than as an agent. So I have to fall in love. I have to fall in love with the story, with the characters, with the writing. And depending on the book, sometimes one thing will take priority over the other, depending on the genre, depending on the writer. But yeah, no, I have to have that reaction that any reader has when reading a good book.
Falling in love with it for the first time.
Just wanted to keep going, keep reading. And
yes, nothing like a good page turner, especially. I think that's the thing. You want to be able to keep invested throughout the entire time. So it's separating that, isn't it?
But also you want to have that sense, you want to push it in the hands of other people.
Yes.
Which is, in my opinion, the most important thing in publishing. When you start representing books or publishing books because you want to tell people what to read or what to think, that's when you start losing your soul. I think the role of people in publishing has to be triggered by that sense of, oh my god, this book is so amazing, you've got to read it because you love it.
Yes.
Rather than, we are the gatekeepers, we're going to tell you this is what you should read. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, of course.
There's a slight difference.
Yeah, of course. That sounds great. Well, thank you for talking about that. So finally, you probably got this question. Your favourite question. I think this is most people's the favourite question, or they either go, I don't really know what's happening. What book would you currently recommend?
So I had to open my lovely spreadsheet. I am very geeky like that. I have a spreadsheet with all the books that I've read.
I put all mine in my journal at the moment. I'm trying to read 15 a year, so I thought that's quite a good way to categorise it.
How many?
10 so far. I don't think that's too bad compared to...
what's the total? What were you aiming at?
50, yeah.
Okay. Tell me what you like. What genre do you like?
Oh, I don't know. I'm a bit trying to read a bit of everything at the moment.
Okay, so I opened my spreadsheet and I thought, what have I read this year that I really liked? So I hit a bit of a reading slump at the beginning of the year. And one of the ways I find to get me back into, into the zone, is to read good commercial fiction.
Yes.
And at the moment, I'm very much into American romantic comedies, or American style romantic comedies. They're slightly different. UK and American romantic comedies are slightly different. But I'm a massive fan of Sally Thorne, who wrote The Hating Game, and her new one was out the beginning of the year. Obviously, I'm not going to mention any of my authors because that would be terribly gauche. So Sally Thorne, she's Australian, and she writes really good romantic comedies. Her latest book is called 99% Mine. Another really great writer, she's Scottish, but she's very successful in America, is called Samantha Young. Fight or Flight. I read quite a bit of non-fiction. What have I read? Because being pregnant, I'm trying to stay away from baby books, but I've read one that I loved, which is called French Kids Don't Throw Food.
Oh, right, okay.
So it's about the differences in parenting between, more European continental style of parenting and the American Anglo-Saxon style of parenting. Very, very useful. I pushed it in my husband's hand.
Now read this.
Read this. Last year was a great year for fiction.
Yes.
Favorite one was possibly what's it called? Oh my God, The Queen of Bloody Everything. I don't know if you read it.
No, I've seen it. I think there's been so many books going through my Twitter feed at the moment. I'm just like, I have no idea to keep up with all these books at the moment.
So Joanna Nadin, she normally writes children or YA,
right.
And this was the first adult book, and it's called The Queen of Bloody Everything. And it's just, apart from the fact that it has one of the best covers I've seen, but it's a terrific story of a very difficult, very fraught relationship between a woman and her mother. So that was exceptionally good. Dear Mrs. Bird came out last year. It was also very, very good, by AJ Pearce. And Happiness for Humans, PZ Rising. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. But yeah, these are my favorite of last year. Oh, and another great one was Homecoming, by Ya Gyasi.
Oh, right.
Excellent, absolutely excellent.
That's great.
Yeah. But I could talk about the books I love, forever, so you need to stop me now.
I will. No, it's fine. I think it's always good to have recommendations, because people either stumble at it or they're like, I've read something amazing in the past couple of days, or like read one book, and then there's some people go, I've read loads of books. So I think it's just, you've got lots of recommendations, which is great.
But also I like to find a balance between reading the ones that have been heavily, talked about.
Yeah.
So they are everywhere, and they will find their audience and their readership. And obviously, I need to read them because I need to know what people are talking about, which is terrible.
Yeah, I just bought a copy of The Flat Share today by, oh God, I can't remember what her name is.
Oh yeah, no, I know. Oh God, what's the name?
I can't remember.
But anyway, I know the one you mean.
Yeah, so I just bought a copy of that, and it was in Waterstones. I'm like, oh, do I, don't I? And it was signed as well. I'm like, I'm going to have to buy it. So I did. And I splashed out with my student discount, which was great. So that's always good. All right, well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast today, and good luck with everything, and I hope to speak to you again soon. All right,
thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye. That's it for this week's episode. Thanks for listening. You can follow Federica on Twitter at Miss Leonardis. If you'd like to be involved with the podcast, you can get in touch through Twitter at novelem16 and use the hashtag Slothcast. Or you can send me an email at slumberingSlothBookNook@gmail.com. You can always find the podcast on our YouTube channel, Slumbering Sloth Book Nook, or download it from Podbean for an on-the-go experience. See you next week. Bye.